This video is going to contain Act 3 spoilers. Just don't say I didn't warn you. The strategy used in this video is specifically meant to help clear boss fights while using the Nightmare difficulty mod list, not the vanilla game. I will discuss mechanics related to bosses that do not exist in regular Tactician. However, the actual strategy being employed here will work the exact same way in the vanilla game. The same spells, the same items, the same order of operations, all of it will work the same exact way. So, what exactly is a burst window? A burst window is usually a single turn where your burst damage dealer is going to dump all of their available damage resources and try to kill a boss. So, why do we even care about a burst window? Well, if you're playing on the Nightmare difficulty mod list, many bosses will have an HP threshold related mechanic, otherwise known as an Enrage mechanic. The mechanic is going to be directly tied in to the boss's health, as in, once the health goes below a certain threshold, on the next turn that boss is going to enrage and gain some kind of bonus. The bonuses they can gain will vary wildly, but some examples are more actions, better saving throws, more AC, damage amplifiers, crowd control immunities, and access to new spells. If you can avoid the Enrage mechanic entirely, you always should try to do so. Some of them are unavoidable, but you get the point. This is where the burst window comes into play. If your party can just kill the boss before they can take their turn and activate their Enrage mechanic, you can effectively avoid it altogether. So, how do you set up and execute a burst window? I think this is best shown using an example. I also think the best example of this is going to be on the fight with Orin the Red. Orin is a somewhat unique boss fight, in that she doesn't just have an Enrage mechanic, she actually has two. Assuming you play on my settings, of course. Now, both of her Enrage mechanics become available as soon as her health dips below 1600. More importantly, she can use both on the exact same turn, using an action and a bonus action. I'll leave you to figure out exactly what they do for yourself. Trust me, it's a lot of fun to find out. But, in my experience, if she's able to take her turn and uses both, the fight is probably going to be impossible to win, unless you use something like Divine Intervention. Now, for this example, my burst damage dealer is going to be a Lockadin. But there are plenty of other options out there. Do not feel like you have to use the same exact build as I did. Just do your research and you'll see there are plenty of other burst damage dealers besides Lockadins. Okay, let's go over the setup process. By this point in the game, your party support should have this sword equipped. You can find the sword early on in the Underdark. The sword comes with two unique spells. The only one we care about is called Melody Shriek. When the ability is used, it will create a debuff aura around the sword's wielder. The aura will last for 5 turns, so use this early on in your setup. Any enemy caught inside the aura will receive a very powerful debuff. The debuff makes them take 1d4 thunder whenever they receive any damage. This is a little poorly worded, actually it's very poorly worded, and they will take way more damage than that. As soon as you're in combat, you should try and use the Illithid power, Psionic Overload. This power, when used, will give you a buff called Overloaded with Synaptic Power. While overloaded, you will gain 1d4 Psychic to all damage, but you will also take 1d4 Psychic at the end of your turn. After that, you will need to use the Illithid power called Perilous Stakes on the boss. This will last for 3 turns, so feel free to use this early on in the setup. The condition it applies will force impose vulnerability to all damage types. In other words, the target will take 2 times more damage from all types, unless they were previously immune to that damage type. At this point, you need to make sure a caster or a support has casted haste on your primary burst damage dealer. Now, if the boss is not immune to poison, a marshal should try and throw a paralysis poison grenade at the boss to try and apply the effect paralysis. The item I used for this is called Karabasan's Poison, but there are other options available. If the enemy is hit and fails a DC check, they will be paralyzed. Paralysis causes all hits from melee range to automatically roll a critical hit. This is key, because critical hits will cause all of your damage dice to be rolled 2 times and then added to each other. This next part gets a little bit hectic, but bear with me. First, we have to move our burst damage dealer, the Lockadin, next to our monk. Doing so will apply Protection Aura to the monk, which gives the Lockadin the effect Arcane Synergy. Right after that, the Lockadin has to use Dash, or a similar ability, which will give them the effect Arcane Charge. Let's break down what just happened. First, we need to be wearing these 2 items, the Diadem of Arcane Synergy and the Boots of Arcane Bolstering. The Diadem is going to give us 2 turns of Arcane Synergy every time we inflict a condition. In our case, applying Protection Aura to the monk counts as inflicting a condition. Arcane Synergy will add our Charisma modifier to each weapon attack, so in this particular example, the modifier would be +5. The Boots will give us 2 turns of Arcane Charge every time we dash or use a similar ability. The tooltip for Arcane Charge is horribly misleading, and will actually add your proficiency modifier to all damage. At level 12, that modifier would be +4. After that, we can go ahead and apply Hex to our target because we are a Lockadin. This will add a 1d6 necrotic to all of our damage. Next, we're going to damage one of the weaker enemies in this fight so that they are within kill range of a single swing. The goal being, next turn we want to use this enemy to gain an extra action with our elixir. Before the fight even began, you should have drank a Bloodlust elixir. This is great on fights with additional enemies that are easy to kill, because it will give you an extra action for 1 turn after you kill an enemy. This is even better on the build we're running, which is a Lockadin, because Lockadins are going to get 3 weapon attacks per action, which means we are basically trading one of our attacks to gain 2 more. At this point, we're going to take our sustained damage dealer, which is a monk, and use it to chip away at the boss's health just a little bit. This was to ensure a clean kill. Although, considering how much damage our Lockadin is capable of dealing, this is actually completely unnecessary here, just a safety net. Finally, before we try and kill the boss, we're going to kill the remaining weak enemy that we prepared exactly 1 turn prior. He only has 37 HP here, so we can use exactly 1 attack to kill him, which will leave us with precisely 8 attacks remaining. Interestingly enough, this is also exactly how many spell slots we have available. At this point, we have completed our entire setup and can easily kill the boss this turn, avoiding her Enrage Mechanics altogether. Even through her staggeringly high 1700 HP, Orin is dead, and we still have 2 spell slots and our bonus action remaining, which means we could use a bonus action smite and have 1 additional smite to use on the same attack. The 2 of these together could probably deal an additional 600 damage, which means in total we'd have something north of 2500 damage available, and we really only needed 1700. Okay, let's recap here. In our setup, we used Psionic Overload, Falara Louve, Perilous Stakes, a Paralysis Poison, Arcane Synergy, Arcane Charge, Hex, and Bloodlust. With this exact setup, our Lockadin could have hit Orin for over 2500 damage. She only has 3200 HP in total. So, yeah.